The next type of factoring trinomials we're going to look at is harder trinomials, or if we have an a value. Now, sometimes when we have an a value, like this first question here, we can actually factor it out by common factoring first. We recognize that we have a 4 at the front, but when we look at our other values, this is typically a, b, c. When we look at our a value, our b value, and our c value, they're all divisible by 4. So that means we can get something like this, or we're multiplying it out, and then this just becomes a simple trinomial. So this is just going to be, leave the 4 there. We're going to put our 2 brackets. We'll have x at the front of both. Multiplies to -3 and adds to -2 is going to be -3 and +1. But what if we're given something like this, where we have a 2 which divides into 6, but it doesn't divide into 7. So in that case, we can't do this common factoring method. We need to come up with something else. So the two most common things that we're going to look at are an AC chart and decomposition. So the first way to look at this is we need to have some sort of chart. Now, how you do this is kind of up to you, but the better you are with algebra, the easier this is going to be. So in our a values, we need numbers that multiply to a. So in this case, it's going to be 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. So I'm going to look at 2 and 1 first, and then we need numbers that multiply to 6 or our c value in our c part of the chart. So I'm going to write down 3 and 2. So now what we need to do is a little bit of mental math in our head. So if I were to work across here, I know that both of my signs are going to be positive because I'm multiplying to +6 and adding to +7. So I'm going to be adding together my answers. So if I did 2 times 3, I would get 6. If I added 1 times 2, well, 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 2 is 2. That's going to add to 8. So that's not going to work. Okay, well, what if I switch that, instead of having 3 and 2, I had 2 and 3. Well, I'm going to then go 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 times 3. 4 plus 3 is going to give me 7. So that's what I need to have. So I know that I'm going to have some sort of combination of 2n, because I need my n still, and n. Then it's either going to be +2 and +3 or +3 and +2. Well, if we look at what we have here, I'm going to rewrite what I've kind of discovered right here. I had 2 and 2 and 1 and 3. Well, what I need to do is I need to have 2 and 2 multiplying together. And I need to have 1 and 3 multiplying together. The only way for them to multiply together is if they're in opposite brackets. So that means the 2 has to go here and the 3 has to go here. Now there's different ways to look at this type of chart, but essentially they're all the same. They come down to how well you can factor out values and then multiply and add in your head, or multiply and add on the page. There is another way to do it called decomposition. Now this is a little bit longer and the numbers can get a lot bigger. So this method would be something that you'd want to do if you were unsure on how to factor something, or if you didn't see the factored values. So doing the exact same question with decomposition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a times c. Now a times c is going to be 12. And then I'm going to have my b value, which is 7. So I need two numbers that multiply to AC and add to 7. So first step, however, so I'm going to just rewrite the whole thing here because I want to have a little bit more space, is I'm going to rewrite my 2n. So I'm going to have 2n squared. And then what I'm actually do is I'm decomposing the 7 and I'm going to rewrite my 6. So I'm decomposing the 7 into two terms. So my two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7 are going to be plus 4 and plus 3. If I look at that, 4 plus 3 is 7. This turned into these two values. 7n turned into 4n and 3n. And then what we need to do now is factor by grouping. So I'm going to factor these two terms and these two terms. We had a plus there. So in the first two, I'm going to take out a 2n. And then I'm going to be left with n plus 2. And then in the second one, I'm going to take out a 3. And I'm going to be left with n plus 2. So now I'm going to be common factoring my n plus 2. So I get n plus 2. And whatever was outside of the brackets is going to be left 2n plus 3. To check your answers for these, what I always do, now you won't be able to see me, is I always visualize this by putting my fingers here. N times 3 is 3n. Then I would move my two fingers in. So I've got 3n plus 4n. And that value should always give me 7n. Okay, 3 plus 4 gives me 7. When I move my fingers in, if you look at this last one, if I had my fingers here and here, I add 4n, move them in, plus 3n. I would then move them up, should give me 7. Then I know I'm correct. That's a quick check. That's not actually expanding everything out. You always can expand and check if you're correct, but that's a quick check to see if you're right. Let's look at a couple more. So if I looked at this one might be a little bit easier to do the AC chart. So if I was going through these values in my head, I know that 3a can actually only multiply with 3 and 1. So that part of my AC chart's done. Now over the side, up above, below, I'm going to have to make my chart up. So I've got A and C. I know I have to deal with 3 and 1. Now if I'm looking at this, I need numbers to get to 17. So if I did 20 and 1, well, that's probably not going to work. This is going to be adding to a positive, multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. So we know both of our values are negative. So we're going to be adding them together. So 20, that's not going to probably work. But what if I did 1 on the top and 20 on the bottom? Well, some people might think that that's going to work. 3 times 1, 1 times that. If I did 20 minus 3, that gives me 17. But that would mean that I would have to have a positive and a negative because I'm subtracting. So this isn't going to work at all. So then we're going to have to move on to new values that multiply to 20 and add to negative 17. So what if I tried 4 and 5? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 times 5 is going to be 5. 12 plus 5 is 17. Well, that works. I know I need to multiply my 3 times 4, so I'm going to put them in opposite brackets. 1 times 5, they go in opposite brackets. And if I look, I'm going to have 3 and 4. That would be 12. Move my fingers in. Move this one in. So I would visualize this by actually putting my fingers on the page. Negative 12 plus negative 5 gives me negative 17, so I know I'm correct. Okay. This last one here we'll do with decomposition. We'll do both of them. So we're going to have A, C, and B. So A times C is negative 60. B is going to be 11. So we need to multiply to negative 60 and add to 11. So I'm going to rewrite this down here. So we'll have equals 6p squared. We have minus 10. Now our two numbers are going to be positive 15 and negative 4. 4 times 15 is 60. We need to add to 11, so we need to have it that way. So we're going to have plus 15p minus 4p. Now this one's actually going to be a little bit more difficult just when we're doing the factoring, but I'm writing it this way on purpose. So when we look at this, we're going to have negative 6, so this is going to be 3p. So we're left with 2p plus 5. Now, when I'm factoring, I want to actually factor out a negative. I'm going to take out -2 here. Now, a lot of people are going to get this wrong. They would get 2p, and I would get a lot of -5s. Okay, you need to be careful and look at your signs. You've taken a negative out here, even though that value is right there. We've taken a negative out, so we need to be careful. A negative and a positive makes a negative. And now I've got my 2p plus 5, 2p plus 5. I'm going to write that here. Whatever was outside the brackets becomes my other bracket. I can do my check, and I would know I was correct. What if we had something like this? Well, we've got 2x minus 5 is a factor of this. What is the other factor? This is actually very easy. 2x minus 5. The only way for this to work, we know that this is a factor. So 2x squared divided by 2x gives me x. And then -35 divided by -5 would give me +7. That has to be the other factor, because if this was already a factor, we need to be able to multiply to get these two values. We actually don't have to check our middle term, because if they're both factors, that's the only way for this to work out. Let's say we did want to do a check. All we would do is FOIL this out. This is a more formal way to do it. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 7 is 14x. Then we'd get -5x and -35. Collect like terms in the middle. And we're back to what we started with, so we know we did it correct.